All right, so we have just a few hours of Passover left, and I want you to think back to over a week ago when you were getting ready for Passover, or if it's not your spiritual practice to cleanse your house of chametz and flip over your dishes and cook a seder, think back to a family member or maybe a friend. How long does it take to get ready for Passover? So Arnie says 3 days. Magen says? It is a very long time. I know. A while, right? And the first Seder was no exception. We're told that they brought the sacrifice in on the 10th of Nisan. But the night of the Seder isn't until the 14th, turning into the 15th of Nisan. That means that you had 4 days to get ready. 4 days to sit with this sheep in your house, it says. Bring it into your house. So the question becomes, what is it doing in there? And Rashi says something very interesting. He says this sheep that had to be there 4 days early was just for the first generation that had a Seder. It was just for the people that actually left Egypt. After that, you don't have to deal with the sacrifice until the 14th of Nisan. So what is going on there? Ramban comes and fills in the gap a little bit about why the first generation was distinct from the generations that gave sacrifices in the tabernacle and the temple. What Ramban says is, in the spring, we're under the zodiac sign of the sheep, and the sheep was an Egyptian god. And the Jewish people were in horror of having to keep, for all intents and purposes, an Egyptian god in their house for 4 days. Not so safe, right? If you're living in Egypt surrounded by Egyptians, not so great to have to hold on to this sheep in your house for 4 days getting ready for the Seder. And Rabbi Jordan Ben-Dat Appel, who's at the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, has an interesting understanding of this. He says, they weren't ready to leave Egypt. They were still afraid of Pharaoh. So each house was commanded 4 days early to bring the symbol of Egyptian royalty and divinity into their home. And then they were told to take care of it. And as you take care of a sheep, how do you have to sustain its life? What do you have to do to take care of it? You got to feed it, water it, clean up after it. And you start to realize that this Pharaoh, this thing that has been so frightening to you, is actually just a sheep. Even more than that, we're told that the Passover sacrifice had to be without blemish, which meant that you had to make sure the sheep didn't get hurt, which helps you realize that the sheep is actually pretty fragile. And so what Rabbi Jordan Ben-Dat Appel is teaching is the first generation needed to sit for 4 days and contemplate their little miniature Pharaoh until they got to the point where they realized, I don't need to be afraid. I can leave Egypt. We have a few hours left for Passover, and if you, in the hubbub of family visiting and preparing festive meals and shortened work weeks, if you haven't had a chance to contemplate for yourself this year, what is my Pharaoh? What is holding me back from leaving my personal Egypt? Maybe this afternoon it would be good to sit with yourself or with someone you love and contemplate your sheep. Shabbat Shalom.